Catherine Wheeler stood on the splintered porch of her late father's ranch, staring at the foreclosure notice pinned to the door like a death sentence. The autumn wind swept across the dry pasture, carrying with it the loneliness she had fought for months. She was out of options, out of time, and nearly out of hope until Antonio Reyes rode up the dusty road. Antonio was known across Clearwater County for being a hard-working rancher, a man of few words and even fewer attachments. His dark hat shadowed sharp eyes, and he carried the quiet weight of someone who had lived through storms, both the weathered kind and those of the heart. Catherine didn't know him personally, but everyone knew of him. He dismounted, studying the notice on her door. "Looks like trouble," he said softly. She exhaled shakily. "They're taking the ranch. If I can't pay everything by the end of the week, it's gone." Antonio's jaw tightened. "This land borders mine. If a developer buys it, they'll split up the grazing routes." She blinked at him, not understanding why he cared. Then he said the craziest words she'd ever heard. "I can protect your land if you marry me." Catherine felt the world tilt. "Marry you? We barely know each other." "It doesn't have to be real," he said. "Just on paper. It'll give me legal grounds to cover the debt until you get back on your feet. A temporary partnership." Her heart pounded. A fake marriage to a stranger, but a stranger who looked at her with sincerity, not advantage. "What's in it for you?" she whispered. "Keeping the land intact," he replied. But there was something he didn't say, something deeper in his eyes, a secret pain. Catherine thought about the ranch her father built, about the memories tied to every fence post and patch of dirt. She swallowed hard, forcing courage into her bones. "All right," she said. "I'll do it." Antonio nodded, almost relieved. "We'll head into town at first light." As they shook hands to seal their unconventional bargain, Catherine felt a spark of something unexpected, something dangerous, something that didn't feel fake at all. Their marriage might have been born of necessity, but the wind that swept across the ranchlands carried a whisper of something more. The morning after the courthouse wedding, Catherine stared at the simple silver ring on her finger. The ceremony had been fast-signed papers, exchanged vows, spoken more like a business deal than romance. Yet something in Antonio's steady voice lingered with her. When they arrived at his ranch house, she felt suddenly shy. The cabin was larger than she expected, made of warm cedar with wide windows overlooking the open range. It smelled faintly of leather, pine, and the lingering smoke of last night's fire. "I cleared out the guest room for you," Antonio said, setting her bags down gently. "You'll have your privacy." "Thank you," she murmured, though part of her wondered why the words made her chest tighten. Life with Antonio was awkward at first. They moved around each other carefully, two strangers sharing a roof and pretending to have a life together. Catherine cooked breakfast while Antonio worked the barns. He showed her the grazing line, the tool shed, the horses, explaining everything with patient professionalism. But as days turned into weeks, something began to shift. One afternoon, Catherine tried saddling a spirited buckskin mare and lost her grip. The horse jerked, nearly knocking her off her feet, but Antonio caught her from behind, steadying her with calloused hands. "You all right?" he asked, voice low, steady. Their eyes locked for a heartbeat too long. She felt warmth rising in her cheeks. "Yes," she whispered. "Thanks to you." Another evening, Catherine found him repairing a broken fence post. Without asking, she grabbed a second hammer and joined him. They worked side by side, the rhythm of their tools echoing across the quiet pasture. When the job was done, he offered her a rare smile. "You learn fast," he said. "And you're not as grumpy as people say," she teased. He actually laughed, a warm, rich sound that surprised her. Little moments like these kept happening, soft, unexpected threads, weaving them together. Catherine began to see the man beneath the stoic exterior, gentle, thoughtful, protective. And Antonio began to see her strength, her fire, her determination. But despite the closeness forming between them, she sensed a wall inside him, a secret he wasn't ready to share. and Catherine feared that as long as that wall remained, their marriage would always be half real and half pretend. A month into their marriage, the ranch pulsed with spring activity. Calves were being branded, fences repaired, fields prepared for early planting. Catherine worked alongside Antonio every step of the way, determined to prove she wasn't a burden. But she couldn't ignore the way he sometimes drifted off his eyes, darkening like storm clouds, his jaw tightening as though haunted by old memories. One morning, while they were rounding up cattle near a rocky ridge, thunder cracked in the distance. Catherine flinched, but Antonio froze. "Antonio?" she asked softly. His chest rose and fell too quickly. His hands trembled on the reins. "It's just a storm," she murmured. "No," he whispered. "Not again." Before she could press him, a bolt of lightning struck a distant tree, sending the herd scattering. Catherine kicked her horse forward. "Come on. We have to get them back." The storm pushed them into a dangerous chase across the open range. Rain lashed at their faces as they rode, guiding panicked cattle back toward the valley. Catherine's heart pounded as her horse leaped over muddy dips and sharp rocks. Antonio rode beside her, his fear dissolving into instinct and fierce determination. Together, they cornered the herd against the natural rock wall until the storm finally eased. Breathing hard, they dismounted and checked the strays. Catherine wiped rain from her eyes. "What happened back there? You look terrified." Antonio swallowed hard. His voice cracked. "Last year, lightning started a wildfire. I lost half my herd, and someone important." Catherine stepped closer. "Antonio, my brother," he said, voice breaking. "He didn't make it out in time." The pain in his eyes was Royak's. Without thinking, Catherine wrapped her arms around him. He stiffened, then let out a shuddering breath as he held her back. The embrace wasn't planned. It wasn't part of the deal. It was heartbreak meeting comfort on the open range. "I'm sorry," she whispered. He rested his forehead against hers. "I didn't want to bring you into my mess." "You brought me into your home," she said softly. "That wasn't a mess. That was kindness." Antonio looked at her as though seeing her for the first time not as a partner of convenience, but as a woman he was beginning to care for deeply, too deeply, and that scared him more than any storm. Catherine found herself thinking about Antonio more than she wanted to admit. His steady hands, his rare smiles, the way his voice softened when he spoke her name. She had agreed to a fake marriage, but her heart had betrayed her long ago, and she feared she wasn't the only one. One evening, after a long day repairing the corral, Catherine prepared dinner. Antonio entered the kitchen silently, watching her mix herbs into a pot of stew. "You work too hard," he said. She smiled without turning. "You taught me that." A quiet warmth settled between them. He stepped closer. "Catherine, thank you for everything." She faced him, wiping her hands on her apron. "I'm not doing anything special." "You are," he said. "Every day, you make this house feel alive again." Their eyes met. The air shifted. He reached for her hand, his thumb brushing her knuckles. Catherine's pulse quickened, but before she could speak, a truck pulled up outside. It was the land developer, Mr. Monahan. Catherine's stomach dropped. Antonio's expression hardened. "Stay here." She followed anyway. Monahan stepped onto the porch with arrogant ease. "Heard you two rushed into a marriage," he said smugly. "Cute. But it won't save the Wheeler Ranch." "We're within our rights," Antonio said coldly. "You may be," Monahan replied, "but I just bought the bank's loan. If you don't pay everything in full in 3 days, the land is mine." Panic surged through Catherine. 3 days? That's impossible. Monahan smirked. "Should have taken my offer when you had the chance." He drove off, leaving dust and dread behind him. Catherine felt tears sting her eyes. "Antonio, what do we do?" He cupped her cheeks gently. "We fight together." "But what if we lose everything?" she whispered. His voice softened. "Then we'll start over. Because I'm not letting you face anything alone, not anymore." Her breath caught. Antonio leaned in as though to kiss her, then stopped, pulling back. "I can't," he murmured. Not when this started as a business deal. Catherine's heart twisted. But it's not a deal to me anymore. Her voice trembled, but it was the truest thing she'd ever said. Antonio stared at her, conflicted, longing, afraid, and she knew the next 3 days would decide not just the ranch, but their hearts. The next 3 days blurred into exhausting labor. Catherine and Antonio worked dawn to dusk, repairing equipment, sorting cattle, and preparing stock for a last-minute auction. Neighbors came to help, drawn by the couple's determination. But still, they were short. On the final morning, Catherine stood on the ridge, overlooking her father's land, trying not to break. Antonio approached quietly. "We're still missing 5,000, he said. Catherine nodded, swallowing her fear. "I don't want to lose this place." Antonio stepped closer. "You won't." He cupped her chin gently and met her eyes. "I haven't been honest with you. Not completely." Her heart stilled. "I said, I married you for the land. But that's not the whole truth." He took her hands, his voice low and vulnerable. "Somewhere between fixing fences and chasing storms with you, I fell in love. And whether we keep the ranch or start from nothing, I want you with or without the land." Catherine's breath trembled. Before she could speak further, a convoy of trucks pulled into the yard. Catherine's jaw dropped. Her father's old friends, the neighboring ranchers, piled out with envelopes in hand. "Your daddy helped us more times than we could count," one said, "and we'd be damned to watch his daughter lose her home." Catherine choked on a sob as they handed Antonio and her enough to bridge the final gap. More than enough. By noon, the payment was delivered. Her ranch was safe. When they returned home, Catherine threw her arms around Antonio. He lifted her off her feet, holding her as though she was his whole world. "I love you," she whispered. "This marriage stopped being fake a long time ago." Antonio kissed her slow, deep, and certain as the sun dipped behind the hills. There was no more pretending, no more fear. Just two hearts choosing each other on the open range. Their love had started as a necessity, but it grew into something real, stronger than land, storms, or secrets. And it would last a lifetime. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more Western stories.